Well, hello everybody, and welcome to Jeff's Baking Blog. Today's recipe is going to be for a seeded loaf. In fact, two loaves. And I'm starting it this evening and I will finish it tomorrow because we make a starter dough which we leave for at least 8 hours. So I'm going to leave mine overnight for the dough to ferment, and then that gets added in to the main ingredients for the bread. Now, I'm making this because I've usually eat wholemeal bread, but a couple of weeks ago I tried a seeded batch loaf, a Hovis loaf in fact, which is very, very nice, which uses white flour, but some malt flour, malt barley flour and such like as well, but mainly white flour. And it was very, very tasty and so lovely and soft, and I thought I wanted to try to emulate that. But batch loaves tend to be quite wide and not so tall, and they're baked in batches in big pans basically. Well, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to simply make mine in two-pound or 900-gram loaf tins. So as I said, I'm making two loaves, but you can easily halve the recipe and just make one loaf. So the first thing we need to do is to make the starter dough. So I'll give the ingredients for that now and then make that, and then tomorrow I'll do the ingredients for the remainder of the dough. And here I have 180 grams, which is 1 cup plus 3 tablespoons, based on scooping packed flour into a 250 milliliter cup of bread flour. And I'm using bread flour which has a 13% protein content. I also have 225 millilitres, which is 1 cup minus 1 tablespoon of lukewarm water. And my water is at about 41 degrees Celsius, which is, I think, about 106 Fahrenheit. And I also have here an 1/8 of a gram or 1/4 of a teaspoon of instant yeast. And we're simply going to mix those together until they're fully combined, and then we're going to cover it and leave it overnight. So I'll put the yeast into the flour and I'll just give that a little bit of a stir around, and then I'll pour the water in, and I'm going to mix that until it's fully combined. And even if there were a couple of little lumps in it, it wouldn't matter, because it's going to ferment with that little bit of yeast, and those lumps will gradually dissolve anyway. And that's perfectly good like that. So with that mixed, I'm going to cover that and I'm just going to leave it on the counter like that until tomorrow morning, and I'll come back tomorrow morning and we'll go on to make the dough. So it's now the next morning, and my starter dough has been resting overnight, so I'll go on to the ingredients for the multi-seed bread. And for this I have my starter dough here, which has been rising overnight. It's just begun to sink down a little bit, but it's nicely aerated. And then to go with that I have 650 grams, which is 4 1/3 cups, based on scooping packed flour into a 250 milliliter cup of bread flour. And here I have 170 grams of mixed seeds. I have a combination of brown linseed, golden linseed, sunflower seeds, poppy seeds and sesame seeds. I've mixed those together. You can use whatever combination you want, really. The Hovis loaf that I bought included millet seeds, but for me to buy that I would have to buy in bulk, and I didn't want to buy in bulk, so I've swapped out that for sesame seeds. Then I have 325 millilitres, which is 1 cup minus 1 tablespoon of warm water, again at 41 degrees or about 106 degrees Fahrenheit. I have 15 millilitres, 1 tablespoon of oil, and I have 2 ingredients here which you can use or you don't have to use if you don't want to. This is 10 grams, 1 tablespoon of diastatic malt powder. That's made with barley, and that's going to give some colour and some flavour to my bread. But if you don't have that, you don't need to use it. And here I have another 10 grams, 4 teaspoons of barley flour, and that will sort of add to the flavour of the bread too. But again, you don't need to use that. If you don't have those, you could just add in another 10 grams of the bread flour. That would be fine. And then I have 12.5 grams, 4 teaspoons of instant yeast, and 15 grams, 2.5 teaspoons of salt. So that's all the ingredients, and we need to go on to make the dough. And to make the dough, I'm going to put my starter dough into the bowl of my stand mixer. And you can use any type of stand mixer you want. And then I've put my warm water into the bowl that had the starter dough, just to get the remainder out, and I'll pour that in. And then I'm going to put my yeast in as well, and I'm just going to give that a little mix around. Just to get those a little bit combined. And so then I'm putting my diastatic malt powder and my barley flour into the bread flour. I'm just going to give that a stir around to get those mixed through a little bit. And then I'm going to add that into the wet mixture, and I'm going to add about a half of it to start with. And sprinkle my salt over the top. And I'll just mix that until that's combined. And then I'll add in the remaining flour. And I'll mix that until that becomes a shaggy dough. And that's quickly turned into quite a shaggy dough. So I'm going to knead that on a medium speed for 8 to 10 minutes until it's nice and smooth and soft and quite stretchy. So I've kneaded my dough for 10 minutes, and I did add 2 tablespoons more flour in just to get it to this stage. Flour absorbs moisture at different rates depending on humidity and such like, so sometimes you have to add a little bit more in. So at this stage we can add in the seeds, and I could put those into the bowl here and mix them through, but I'm actually going to turn my dough out onto the counter and then put the seeds in. So I've tipped my dough out onto a lightly floured surface, and I'm just going to flour the top as well. And I'm going to press that down and pull it out into a rectangle, and I'm going to put some seeds on it, just spread them over like that. And then I'm going to roll that up to enclose those seeds, and then I'm going to simply press it out and do it again. And I'm going to do that until I have all the seeds in the dough, and then I'll give the dough a quick knead to help distribute them a little bit more. And with most of the seeds incorporated, I'm holding some back so that I can put them on the top of the bread before I bake it. I'm just going to knead the dough by hand a little bit, and having kneaded the dough to get the seeds fairly nicely distributed, I've divided my dough into 2 pieces which are about 850 grams each. And the reason I'm doing that is because as the dough rises after proofing, I don't want to deflate it too much before I shape it to go into the loaf tin. So by dividing it now, I can work with each piece individually to put it into its loaf tin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply form this into a ball, and I'm going to put it back into the bowl of my stand mixer and form the other piece into a ball and put that into a lightly greased bowl. And I ought to say, I think I forgot to show you adding the oil into the dough mixture, but I did add the oil in, so that can go in at the same time as the water and the yeast and the starter dough. I added mine in just as I started kneading, but I forgot to mention that I did that. So with that in the bowl like that, I'm simply going to cover that and put the lid on my other one like that, and I'm going to leave those to proof in a warm place for 90 minutes. After 45 minutes I'm going to gently deflate them, then form them back into a ball and turn them over and leave them for a second 45 minutes, and after that time has elapsed I'll come back and we can shape them to put them in our loaf tin. So it's been 90 minutes and my dough has risen well. I did turn it over, I deflated it and turned it over after 90 minutes, and it rose up nicely, and I've actually deflated this a little bit more now. And I'm going to roll that up into a log. And then I'm going to pinch the seam together like that. And I'm going to put that into a 2-pound loaf tin which I have greased. Like that. And do the same with the second piece. And I'm going to cover those with a clean towel, and I'm going to leave those to proof again until they've risen up above the top of the loaf pan by about 1 inch to 1.5 inches, which isn't going to take very long the way they're acting at the moment. And as that happens, I will preheat my oven to 220 degrees Celsius, 200 Celsius with a fan, 425 Fahrenheit, ready to bake the loaves. But before I put them into the oven, I'll come back because I'm going to brush some beaten egg on the top and put some more of the seeds over the top as well. So I'll be back when these are ready to be brushed and baked. So my 2 loaf pans with the dough in are now ready. The dough has risen to a good 1.5 inches above the top of the surface. So I've beaten an egg, and I'm simply going to brush the top of each one with the egg. And the main purpose for this really is because I want to sprinkle some more seeds on the top. If you don't want to do that, you could simply, if you wanted to, just put a little dusting of flour over the top if you wanted. And with the egg brushed over the top, I'm simply going to take some of my remaining seeds and sprinkle those on. Just like that. And then I'm going to put those into my preheated oven, and I'm going to bake them for 25 minutes until they rise up nicely and the internal temperature should reach at least 88 degrees Celsius, 190 Fahrenheit. That will tell me that they're done. And then I will take them out of the oven, leave them in the tin for a couple of minutes, but then I'll take them out of the tin and put them onto a wire rack to cool down. And once they've cooled, I'll come back and show you the results. I baked my loaves for 25 minutes. They rose up quite nicely, and I tested the internal temperature so that I knew that they were cooked inside. I've taken them out of the oven, and they're still very hot, but I'll show them to you. And so this is what they look like, and they've baked up quite nicely. And I will cut one open in a while once it's cooled down, but I'm showing these now because I'm going to take one round to my niece, and then I'll come back, and when the other one has cooled down, I'll cut it and we'll have a taste. So I've let my loaf of bread cool down, and I've sliced it, and I've just put a little bit of butter on one piece. So it looks very nice inside, lovely and soft and full of seeds. So I'll have a taste of this piece which I've put some butter on. That's very good indeed. It's very similar to the Hovis and the Warburtons that I have had recently. Lovely and nutty, full of nuts, nice and soft. A slightest little flavour from that malt powder. So it's excellent for sandwiches, and I'm going to enjoy this over the next couple of days for my lunch. So that's going to be it for this recipe. I hope you've enjoyed it. And if you have, please give me the thumbs up below and click to subscribe to my YouTube channel. In the top right hand corner of the screen there'll be an eye that you can click on, and that will take you to a link for the recipe, and I'll put a link below the video as well. And I'll be back with another recipe in the very near future. So until then, happy baking.